Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we are going to see encapsulation with an example. In our previous video, we saw what is encapsulation or data hiding. Encapsulation is nothing but putting things together, just like an capsule. We have all the ingredient being covered by a layer to protect it. Similarly, in object-oriented programming concept, we have to separate the public members from its internal members. The public members are nothing but which can be accessed from anywhere outside of the class, and private members, it's only internal to that class. So those private members can only be accessed inside a class. So that's the boundary that we are forming around the object, not to be exposed to outside of the world or outside of the class, which we don't want to give access. So let's see this with an example. For that, let me open Visual Studio. I'll create a new console app .NET Framework project. Click on Next. Give a project name, let's say Encapsulation. Encapsulation Demo 2 is the project name, and click on Create. Okay, when we create a console app project, by default we have this class and program class, and we have a main static method inside this class. In order to demonstrate encapsulation, let me create one more class employee. Let me define some public fields, public field for this employee, or you can say the properties of the employee. So let's say we have employee ID, which is of type integer, employee name, which is of type string, and let me create one more property called age of type integer. Let me create one constructor. So if I type CTOR and tab, it will create, Visual Studio will automatically create a constructor. And constructor is nothing but which is used in order to create an object of for the class, or you can say to construct the employee object. So to this constructor, I'll pass employee ID, and then I'll pass employee name, and I'll pass employee age. In ideal world, you'll have a lot of properties for employee class. To make the example simple, let's deal with only three properties in employees. And let's initialize our public fields or properties of this employee. This dot id equal to employee id. This dot name equal to employee name. This dot age equal to employee age. This keyword is nothing but it reference to the employee object. Now let us add one more method which is going to create an employee. Let's make the return type as void. We don't want to return anything while creating an employee. And we'll pass an employee object to create an employee. So before creating an employee, there should be a validation, right? Validation logic. and then creation logic. We are not going to implement creation logic. Basically, the creation logic is to connect to the database and uh, put all the information inside the database. Similarly, validation logic, we are not going to make any complex validation. We'll just understand what is encapsulation. So this validation logic, I can write directly here in line in create employee class. But imagine we have complex validation. We need a lot of manipulation with employee before creating it. So writing inline here in validation logic is not advisable. So what we can do for that, we will create one more class called validate employee private. Let's say bool, which is the return type of validate employee, and we pass employee object. So you perform validation over here if if valid return true, let's say I'll put a simple logic. I would write sorry, return. I will write if I'll write a very simple logic in order to validate the employee. Uh, e.id should be greater than 0 and employee name should not be null or empty. So I can write string dot is null or empty e dot name, and I will say the validation next validation is employee age should be greater than 22 e dot greater than, let's say greater than 20. In ideal case you will have a lot of validation. So for to make uh, this example simple, I'm writing dot is greater than 20. If all these conditions are met, then I will say true, else I will say false. Sorry. So what basically we did, we separated the validation logic. So what I can do here is this validation logic, we put it over here in a separate method and mark this as private. So that's the important thing to notice. We mark this method as private. That means this method validate employee will be only accessible inside this class. So we encapsulated this method into a separate one and mark this as private method so that it cannot be accessible outside of this class. Let's say I'm trying to access employee dot validate employee outside of this class employee. So I'll not be able to do that. Let's say employee E is equal to new employee, and I will pass, so we need to pass the employee name, sorry, employee ID, let's say 1, then employee name Ramesh, and age, it's 22. And if I try to access validate employee, I will not be able to see this. You see, we are getting, I know, even we are not getting the intelligence to add, I mean, to validate the employee. We don't see this validate employee because this validate employee is marked as private, and it can only be accessible inside this class only. This implementation is only internal to this class. Nobody can access this employee. So we encapsulated the validation logic of employee, and we only allowed this class to be accessed, this method. I mean, this method can only be accessible inside this class. So what I'll do before creating the employee is I will just write if validate employee. You see, I have no problem accessing this method inside our class. So if validate employee, then you can write the creation logic. So what did we do? We encapsulated validation logic in a separate method and marking it as private. So now I can go ahead and call create employee. So create employee class is not going to expose the validation logic. The validation logic is outside and it's a private method and it's only internal to this class. So this class will implement whatever level, whether it's medium, high, or complex level of validation logic inside this class only. So the client will not have any idea about what the validation is being done inside employee class. So I can pass employee object. So in this tutorial, we saw what's encapsulation in .NET Framework or C# language. Thank you for watching and have a great day.